Reignbreaker is the latest roguelike looking to squeeze into the genre alongside the venerable Hades, the hugely influential game which reinvigorated the genre almost 5 years ago. Reignbreaker twists and bends much of the classic Hades formula and surrounds it in a medieval meets sci-fi / cyberpunk aesthetic which is unusual and not a blend you commonly see. You play as Clef, formerly in the employ of the game's main antagonist, the Queen of Keys. Along the way, you'll interact with the denizens of this world on either side of the pro and anti-monarchy divide that feels like a futuristic English civil war, but without a Lord Protector of Keys waiting in the wings to take over. The combat I think is a high point. Clef is armed with a sort of steampunk knight's lance, which is your primary ranged weapon and comes with a number of variants. It can fire projectiles, it can be thrown, or it can be slammed into the ground for an area of effect attack. As you use your lance, it builds up heat, with overheating stopping Clef from using the lance, and this requires a switch up in combat style from the lance to a more furious boxing melee style. It's a neat way of balancing ranged and melee combat in a way that doesn't feel arbitrary. It's a strong mechanic, Clef controls really well, the gameplay and handling is all really highly polished here. Speaking of the strong elements, the visual design of this game is solid, the world itself melds the medieval and sci-fi well, letting both shine through while neither overwhelms the other. The rooms, enemies, and bosses all fit into this world really well. The setting as a whole is fantastic. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a fan of the visuals of the Imperium of Man in the 41st millennium, but yeah, it's definitely got a little bit of the Warhammer about this. And unfortunately, that's where the good kind of stops. The world may be really well designed, but it feels very small. You are in one biome for the entire game. This feels really at odds with the narrative. The game is about overthrowing an all-powerful, mind-controlling monarch. The enemies you have dialogue with, especially the mercenaries, clearly articulate the hierarchical benefits for them under the current regime and their desire to defend it. And yet, the game starts and ends in the sewers of this society. Fighting up through the different layers of this society under the Queen would have suited this game better thematically, but instead it leaves you feeling like you're running in place. It's a huge missed opportunity because the game does feel very bland visually, not out of it being bad, but more just out of it being overused. I was craving a new biome pretty quickly and seeing this art style spread out into a wider world. This single biome and running in place adds this feeling to the game of it being heavily padded. Runs look a little bit like this. Start, beat a few rooms, fight a boss, and then get sent back to the hub world. So you aren't doing the normal roguelike format of crossing into multiple areas towards an end goal and a death sending you back to the start. It's structured more like a series of missions, which just kind of feels like it's just breaking out what content is here into as smaller bite-sized chunks as possible and just keeping everything separate. In a roguelike, theoretically, through skill or luck, you could beat the game in your first run. That is not possible here. The narrative dissonance continues into your boon givers. These are characters within the world that set up the fights with the Queen's automatons, and there are rewards based around these characters at the end of fights. This game almost feels like it's setting up a series of fleshed out bosses, but these characters and their influence on the game world stops in these pre-fight chats. The bosses you fight for much of the game go boss 1, boss 2, boss 1 and 2, boss 1 and 2 followed by 3, boss 3 upgraded, and then a final boss. And each of them are robots with very little personality. They do, for the most part, have fun and challenging movesets, but like a lot of this game, it feels detached from everything else. It's like the game knows that these robots lack flair, but refuses to put you against humans for whatever reason. Of these characters, the voice acting is pretty poor in places. The script writing does them no favors. I appreciate the inclusion of voice acting, though, as many games in this space skip this entirely, but some of the writing sounds like a bad after-school special with Clef talking to the local street urchins like Big Bird on Sesame Street. Clef itself oscillates between dommy mommy and just plain mommy, but is always well voiced herself. The other performances opposite her range from comically oldie-woldy English to dry, emotionless dialogue. Some of that might be intentional because we are talking about mind control, but it's still not very nice on the ears. While boss variety is pretty bad, I mean we only have 4 or 5 bosses here, enemy variety is pretty poor too. Many of the same enemies will crop up repeatedly across a run. The fights will have a core of these walking bells and cannon enemies, and then a few different things thrown in around them. Many of the bosses that you beat have lesser versions of themselves that show up as elite enemies, adding a bit of variety, but you've already seen them before as bosses, so is it that different? Too much of this is just purely copied and pasted. The characters setting up these fights don't have a specific type of enemy that they will send after you, or some sort of thematic variety injected that way. There's just no connection here. So much of this game feels like it was created completely separately and then cobbled together. When you're facing the same enemies, the same bosses, in the same environment, it all starts to blur together and the game as a whole loses steam quickly. And that's pretty incredible as it is also super short. In 4 hours, I have all but beaten the game. Why haven't I beaten it? Well, when I came up to the second to last run and fought the final boss, but saw another run was going to happen after that, I got curious and went to see, well, what's in this final run? It's just a repeat of the second to last run. So not including variants, there's really not many enemies in this game at all. This weird structure of throwing you back to the beginning clearly feels like this game was chopped up from where it should have been, because at the end of these boss fights where you're going to go back to the beginning of the game anyway, there's health pickups there, clearly showing that something was chopped out here, that this was meant to be a full run, but they cut it down and padded it out. A single run of all the content is about 25 minutes, but it's spread razor thin over like 4 or 5 hours of gameplay. As well designed as that gameplay is, I found it super easy as well, with only a couple of deaths across the game. If you're looking for a challenge, you won't find it here. Overall, I really wanted to like Reignbreaker. I did initially, but once the cracks started to show, it became a bit of a frustrating play. It does have some really great things at its core with this combat system, but this combat system is stuck in a really underdeveloped product as a whole. The gameplay and visuals are really well polished, but the structure and size of the game leaves a lot to be desired. Usually I'd be really excited for a game to skip early access and land in full release, but not here. This game could do with an early access period to better develop and define its core themes. I do at least give these opinions safe in the knowledge that this game won't turn into something else in the coming weeks and months, but I also wish it would change and grow post-launch. You have to really like this combat to pay the price of admission. But what is your favorite Hades-inspired roguelike? Let me know in the comments down below. By the time you're watching this, I'll hopefully be deep into my most anticipated roguelike of the year, but until you hear more about that, take it easy, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.